So let's close out of this layout, and I'm going to use a different layout for this design. If the first layout you choose doesn't quite work for your design, don't get discouraged. You can always alter these layouts, and as you experiment a little bit, I think you'll start to appreciate why one layout may better fit your content than another. And the closer you can come to your desired design in the initial layout you select, the easier it will be to tailor it to the design you want. So we've put that first attempt aside. Let's try again with a layout that's a little better suited to these two images with a main story and a sidebar that's just an image. Let's try the 2-column fixed right with a header. And let's go ahead and save this right away. And I'm going to call this Zuma, because it's going to be all about Zuma Beach. I always love the name of that beach. So let's start by replacing this header with a graphic that I created for the top of this design. You'll find it in your Files panel. It's called zumabeach.jpg. And as I insert it in here, I'll just add the alt text Zuma Beach. Right away, you may notice that the width of this design is a little wider than my image. So I can adjust that by changing the width of the container. So let's select the image and notice that the width of this image is 750 pixels. And now if I close my Files panel, so I can better see the CSS panel, we select the container and notice that the container is set to 780 pixels. But I can change that to match the width of my image by just changing the width right here. So as soon as I click somewhere else, you'll see that it adjusts. Except it's still not quite right. What's going on here? I've got an image set to 750, I've got the width set to 750, but there's a header too. Now I see that header has padding in it. So remember, when you're working with CSS, there can be a number of styles all affecting the same area of the page. So if you want to alter one of these designs, you may have to change a couple of styles to do so. In this case, I can now just delete the padding, and that div will now fit perfectly around my banner. The other thing I see, though, is that I still have a little space above and below. And even if I keep clicking around here, I'm going to have trouble finding, wait a minute, there's an H1 in the header. Let me split the code and show you what's happening here. This layout was created with an H1 heading in the header. And although I deleted the text of that H1, the H1 tag is still there. And that's what's controlling the spacing now around this image. So if I want that image to fit perfectly in that div, I need to remove the opening and close header of the H1. This is one of those places that knowing a little HTML can really make a difference in figuring out what's happening in the design view. So let's go on and make just a couple more refinements to this design. I've got the main content area. I don't want any of this Latin text, so let me just delete that. I've included in this sample site a file called text to copy. Just open up the Files panel again, and you can double-click on it. I'm just using copy and paste that into place. And now let's bring in the image called Shorebirds. Remember, you can click and drag to bring images from the Files panel right into the design. And let's put an image in the sidebar again. Deleting that and just clicking and dragging. I'm going to use the alt text Sonderlings for these. It's a kind of bird that hangs out on the beach in Malibu. So now you see we're starting to put our design together, but we still have a few things that aren't the way they should be. Once again, we see that this column doesn't fit the image. But this time, because we're dealing with a design with fixed width, we can just change the width of that column to better fit this image. So selecting the image, if I'm not sure, I can see it's 250 pixels wide. Then I can check this column. It's a div called sidebar 1. So if I come over here and I find my sidebar 1 column, I can see it's set to 200 pixels. Let's go ahead and set that to 250. And now remember, the padding gets added to the width. So this column's really going to be 270 pixels now. But if you like that because you want a little padding around your image, then you're all set there. And notice too that the column on the left here still fits, even though we changed the width of the one on the right. That's because our main content column doesn't have a width setting. If you don't specify the width of a div like this, it will simply adjust to fit the available space. Look, Ma, no math on this one.